I didn't quite get done before my Zoom, so let's finish this now. Okay, she says, you really don't have another address on Robin's Egg Lane in another city? Jonah couldn't hear what the girl said in reply because they were stumbling up the steps. But a moment later, as they shoved their way down the aisle, Chip began pleading, "No, wait, don't hang up. Are you adopted?" "Great pickup line, dude," an eighth grader muttered from his seat. Chip lowered the phone from his ear. "Let me guess. She hung up," Jonah said. Chip nodded. Both of them plopped into their seat as the bus pulled away from the curb. "Wow, you really have a way with girls," Jonah wisecracked. Chip shook his head. "I don't understand. This doesn't fit the pattern at all, and now she's mad at me just for asking. Really, I did a much better job with all the other calls, or I had Catherine make them. So just have Catherine call this Daniela back tonight and ask things the right way," Jonah said. "You don't understand," Chip said. "I want to know everything now." Chip slumped in his seat, staring at the cell phone as if it had betrayed him. He looked so miserable that Jonah felt obligated to cheer him up. "Hey," Jonah said, jostling Chip's arm, "you and Catherine have been hanging out together a lot. Do you still have a crush on her?" It was strange how talking about Chip's liking Catherine had become the safe topic. "I can't think about crushes and girls and all that right now," Chip mumbled. "Not when I don't even know who I am." "You're Chip Winston," Jonah said firmly. He felt like he was replaying the conversation he'd had with Catherine the night he'd gotten the second letter, except he was taking the Catherine role. Chip didn't answer right away. Jonah wondered if he'd even heard him. Then, so softly that Jonah had to lean in to hear him, Chip whispered, "Can I tell you something? Even before I found out I was adopted, even before I knew mom and dad weren't really my parents, biological parents, I mean, I always felt there was something wrong with me, something different. Like I wasn't who I was supposed to be, like I'd never belonged. Not here, not back in Winnetka, not anywhere." Jonah leaned away and squinted at Chip in distress. Kids weren't supposed to say stuff like that to other kids. What if somebody else heard him? Jonah looked around. Marcus Gladstone was drumming his fingers on the seat in front of him. Owen Rogers was doing his math homework, muttering, come on, multiply both sides by 12, carry the 4. Queen Jackson was telling Neela Holcomb, "That boy is just bad news." Jonah was pretty sure she wasn't talking about him or Chip. Chip hadn't even looked up. He was still talking, his eyes trained on the seat back in front of him. "And it seems like this whole adoption thing, maybe that's my answer. Maybe once I find out everything and I get an explanation, then I'll know." Jonah shoved his shoulder against Chip's shoulder. "Hey," he interrupted harshly, "stop it." He tried to remember the argument Catherine had used on him. "Weren't you paying attention to that guidance assembly the other day? All teenagers wonder who they are. It's part of growing up." Jonah couldn't believe he'd been forced to use such a goopy line. Now he was as embarrassed for himself as he was for Chip. He hoped no one else had heard him. "I think this is different," Chip said quietly. He paused, as if to give Jonah a chance to say, "I know what you mean." Or to admit, "You're totally right. I felt the same way. And not just since I turned 13. When Jonah didn't say anything, Chip went on. "Don't you see? This is big. All these kids and the FBI and ghosts." "But it doesn't make any sense," Jonah said. "I was working on a theory," Chip said. He held up his cell phone, "until our friend Daniela messed everything up." "So what's the theory?" Before Chip could answer, the phone in his hand began to ring, blaring a Fall Out Boy tune. Quickly, Chip flipped it open and looked at the number. 734 area code. Is that? He raised the phone to his ear. "Daniela? Who are you?" Daniela was evidently shouting because this time Jonah didn't even have to lean close to hear every word. "How did you know?" Chip moved the phone away from his head, gave it a baffled look, then placed it back to his ear. What are you talking about?" "We are moving," Daniela screamed. Her voice blared from the phone. "This is so awful. My life is over." "I thought you said you weren't," Chip said cautiously. "I didn't know." From the way her voice sounded, Jonah suspected that Daniela was about to cry. "My dad made this big family announcement at breakfast. He's taken a job transfer, and that little getaway my parents were on was actually a house hunting trip. They're going to make an offer on a house today. What are you, the realtor's kid? No, actually, Daniela didn't seem to hear him. That wasn't funny at all. If that's your idea of a prank, she fumed. Or were you trying to talk me into thinking I was going to like the house? I won't. My parents say it's wonderful. She made wonderful sound like something evil. I bet it's a pit. Hold on, Jonah said, struggling to catch up with all of Daniela's fury by phone. Did she say her parents are making an offer on the house today? They don't own it already? Chip squinted in puzzlement. You're talking about the house on Robin's Egg Lane, right? Chip said into the phone. He struggled to pull out the survivor list from his pocket, unfold it, and find the right number. 1873 Robin Egg Lane? He bit his lip, obviously making a guess. Linston, Ohio? Yes. That's what you asked me about. Mom and Dad saw it yesterday and just fell in love with it. She twisted the words bitterly, so it sounded like they'd fallen into the deep, fiery pits of Hades. Jonah leaned in close and spoke into the phone. You say they just saw the house yesterday for the first time? Yes, Daniela moaned. Yesterday for the first time. And just like that, they're going to try to buy it today. I think they're having a midlife crisis. They're insane. Why do they have to ruin my life? Now, Jonah was certain she was crying. Her words kept dissolving into wails. I hate Ohio. I'm going to be miserable there. She sniffed. I can't talk anymore. I'm too upset. The next thing Jonah heard was a dial tone. Chip slowly lowered the phone from his ear. She'll call back, he said confidently. She didn't give me a chance to answer any of her questions. But she answered ours, Jonah said. Now, that she let us talk, not that she let us ask much, Chip snorted. I still need to know if she's adopted, and if she got the same kind of letters we got, and if she knows that we all survived. And Chip seemed to be working from some sort of mental checklist. Chip, don't you get it? Those questions don't matter right now. Jonah eased the survivor's lips out of Chip's hand and held it up. I got this list 3 days ago with Daniela McCarthy's address on Robin's Egg Lane. Her parents didn't even see the house until yesterday. They hadn't made an offer on it yet, but they're going to today. So, he shook the list in Chip's face. How did the FBI know the future? They couldn't have, Chip said. Seconds passed while both of them stared hard at the list, the 3-day-old list from the FBI that contained information no one could have been able to know until today. Jonah knew that they were almost at school, that the bus was filled with kids laughing and flirting and teasing and griping and even here and there singing. But Jonah couldn't focus on anything except the survivors list. That and Chip's voice saying slowly, Unless what? Jonah asked. Unless they're the ones making her move. And we're going to stop right there. And how perfect the siren is going off in the background. Can you hear that? That eerie siren sound? Okay, so your job today is to think of, as you were listening, hopefully if there were a few words that were interesting to you that you don't really know, think about those words, write them down, see if you can figure out what they mean. If you can't do that from the found book, please take a time in your silent reading book to search for words that you are unsure of, that you don't know as you read, and see if you can write the definition, what you think they mean, and a synonym, a word that would mean the same thing. Okay? All right. And don't forget to answer the questions on the form.